Okay. All right. So we really just have a couple of pieces of business, and so we're going to address this somewhat amorphously since it's going to also be recorded. But I am going to ask Skittles and Jenna, or Adam and Jenna, and Catherine and Curlew. So if you have contact with anybody on the phone, please take the relevant pieces of information from this meeting and pass that on, okay, as well. So there's really a couple of things, and since there's only a few of us, I'm perfectly happy with you guys unmuting and actually being somewhat interactive, so that it's not just us talking for hours. Is where are we? So kind of just to give you a little bit of a non-timeline, I guess, is so again, right now the SCA is officially shut down through the end of January at this moment. The assorted B&Bs had actually created a tentative calendar for 2021. However, what's going on right now is the society has asked all of the kingdoms for input on our opinions of what we think can and can't happen, what is reasonable to happen. So the expectation is that by the end of the year, we would hear some official word. But I can give you a couple of kind of little tidbits of information. Number one is I think it's very, very, very safe to assume that nothing can be planned for February, March, or April, most likely. At that point, I can tell you most businesses have shut everything down through June or July of next year. So I would be really shocked if the SCA decides to take a more lenient approach to that. The other big variable, quite frankly, is the political administration, right? Is the guidance from the federal government and mandates from the federal government may be very, very different moving forward. Yeah. So again, we can't get too far ahead of ourselves. The Barony could say this is what we want to do. The kingdom can say this is what we want to do. The society could say this is what we want to do. And then the federal government could say, no, you're absolutely not going to get together. So that is another big variable. The other interesting tidbit to share from kind of outside the SCA, but it does, kind of reflect on what we're going through, is Miana and I are both in Kiwanis International. So Kiwanis International is an international service organization, and I'm the outgoing president. So I received an email recently letting all of the individual clubs know that because of the uncertainty around insurance because of COVID, that there basically is no insurance company that will cover our local activities until further notice. So Kiwanis International essentially told every local club, you're on your own until we tell you differently. And so we actually already made the decision to cancel our biggest event of the year, which is in April. And we also distribute all the Easter eggs for all the little kids in Payson, and we're not going to be doing that. So to that point, to give an example, what I think 2021 is going to be is the year of lawsuits. There are plenty of cases lining up where people have been forced to go to work and then gotten COVID, and they're suing their employers. Last time I looked, there's at least 63 cases that have been filed against restaurants from people who chose to go there and then are suing them because they got sick. So there are some legal issues that have to be worked out over the coming year. So I'm just kind of preparing people. There is, I think, a very realistic probability that we will be doing either maybe not be able to open at all, or it may be just very limited, like local events only maybe half of the year. So I've already recommended to the King and Queen, because of the amount of planning that has to be done ahead of time, we're already assuming we're not going to be able to do Highlands. at this point. We just don't think it's going to be reasonable to do it. So, so are there any questions, or is there anything I missed?
Well, the only thing that might change everything is the various vaccines that are all getting publicized right now. But that's a big if. But you know, we acknowledge that's out there, and that may change everything, but we don't know. So at this point, we've got to kind of take it one day at a time.
Yep.
Basically.
So
that's kind of what I figured with the two vaccines that I've seen them talking about and all that. Best case scenario, if they do production right and distribution right, is maybe things can get back to normal around islands, but
right, yeah, exactly.
Right.
We won't know until the end of May, and it's too late to do anything at that point.
Exactly, yeah, because the problem is we have to do contracts ahead of time. We've got to get, you know, and when you're planning an event of that size, you have to make sure you're going to at least make your money back, right? For instance. So, and then of course the other issue, which we really don't, you know, is everybody has their own opinion on this, but I think it would be a nightmare trying to police our friends. So as an example, just to kind of give one example, is at the society level, for instance, they said if we were to be able to reopen at all, fighters would be absolutely required to wear face masks at all times while they are fighting. Yeah, and that was an edict. That would be a society-wide edict. So the question becomes, would fighters just say, okay, well then I'm not going to do it, right? Especially if you have asthma and you're at high altitude, right? Things along those lines. So that's really the other side of the coin is if we are given the opportunity to reopen, but the conditions are so onerous that maybe we just say we don't want to, right? So there's definitely some variables that are involved there. So does anybody have any questions or comments about that? Any of those topics?
Christopher?
Yes. Catherine's making a comment.
Am I remembering correctly that Australia was delayed until November 2021?
That is correct. So at this point, Australia has been delayed until November of 2021. However, again, they can't even begin planning that until we have some really solid answers. Because again, Australia, I mean, the outlay of non-refundable money in many cases with Australia is such that we'd have to have answers relatively early in 2021.
It takes us about 6 months to plan the event.
Is not for certain even.
Yeah, I think Kian, right? It's fair to say Australia is not for certain. It's definitely not for certain that it's going to happen. Yeah, yeah, that's a fair question. So
what about the potential of,
I'll repeat your question.
Once we get back into warmer weather, what would be the potential of Populace meetings held outdoors with distancing?
So again, the answer is gonna be no. It's gonna come down entirely from the society level. The difficulty, I can kind of use our business as an example. So our company is nationwide, and everything was basically, we were not allowed to talk to anybody in person. Everything was Zoom and phone only, nationwide, right? And then they began being able to kind of release us a little bit at a time, state by state. So there was a point this year where every state in the country was able to start meeting in person again, except Arizona. And then it got to the point where every branch in Arizona could reopen except for literally mine and the other guy in Payson. Right?
Because our numbers were
because the numbers in Gila County were bad.
Yeah.
So the problem is a Fortune 500 company has the resources to do that kind of granular movement. I really honestly don't think the SCA has that luxury. So they're probably going to have to, and there's states like Montana, where there's almost no cases, but they might still have to remain shut down because the rest of us are bad. But no, there will be the whatever edicts we get are going to be very firm edicts. There will be no exceptions.
No wiggle room.
There will be zero wiggle room.
Sorry to hear that, but
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Very sensible. I'm glad the SCA is taking a sensible approach to
Yeah.
this.
Well, and unfortunately, the reality is that all of the every decision with regard to the SCA right now is essentially for legal reasons, right? None of it really is. None of these kinds of conversations we're having are like, what's the best thing for the future of the society and our membership's health and our membership's happiness, right? It's basically, how do we not get sued, right? That's kind of the bottom line right now, unfortunately. So, but that's a good segue into the next question that I had. And I'm addressing this question to anybody who's watching this on a recording and still paying attention. So the very difficult position that we have been put in, and when I say we, I mean all the barons and baronesses and the officers, right, of the various baronies, is what do we do, right? So if there are no, and I'm going to say we in particular, I think as a barony are very much about in person, right? We're very social. We're evidenced by this, really bad at virtual stuff, right? We just don't tend to do that. We tend to be a lot more of a group that wants to go camping in the forest and hang out together. So there have been baronies that have had a lot of success doing virtual courts and virtual A&S stuff. And, you know, I participated in the virtual Bardic, things like this. This is where we need to hear from you. Is everybody kind of the opinion, and here we have, you know, 4 of you or 5 of you are going to vote for the whole barony. Now, so I again, I'd really appreciate if you can reach out to other people that you're talking to, and we will do the same personally. But really the question is, you know, are we just going to go dark until we can meet in person? Or, you know, is there any motivation or interest in creating content? And I bring that up because Robert and Colfina, you know, this started when they were still B&B, and I mean, their final Populace meeting ever had 6 people, right? So, you know, I'll be really honest. I mean, we don't want to waste our time kind of creating content and things if nobody's going to do anything. But
on the other hand,
if you guys want, guys want stuff, we'll figure it out.
And it's also, you know, we would like a way to stay in touch with everybody, and you know, at least once a month, just have something that we all get to see each other's faces all at the same time, kind of thing. But you know, if people aren't into that, and I don't want to feel disjointed, you know, from everybody.
So that's where we're going to pause and ask each of you that question. If you can kind of give us your personal opinion or from friends you've talked to.
I guess I'll go first. So we have a lot of baronies that are getting a lot of engagement on their Zoom meetings, their Zoom, like you said, A&S competitions. We have the Great Medieval Baking Show coming up, which sounds kind of fun. If you do decide to do virtual events, talk to me. I'll give you some ideas about getting people engaged. I can help you spread the message. Just whatever social media can do to help you guys out. I can give you tips and tricks to make it more successful, get more engagement.
Yep, thank you.
Excellent.
All right, so Skittles, we'll have you go first. What's your opinion, and if there's anybody you feel you can speak for?
I definitely get the feeling that you're not going to get a whole lot of participation in online stuff up here. Most of us, the ones that are interested in that, are already doing piecemeal with the other baronies, and kind of scratching that itch. And I don't see anything official getting a whole lot of foot traffic if it's virtual.
One thing you might consider is maybe doing something joint with another barony.
Well, we are. So yeah, so one of the things we've been doing is that Ered Sul, Granite Mountain, and Mons Nitrous do a monthly tri-baronial or mountain court, mountain friendship court, right? And we've done it twice so far, and the only attendees from Ered Sul are the two of us. And from Granite Mountain, I think it's 3 or 4 people, maybe. So again, I think it is maybe kind of a cultural thing for those of us up here that we just don't cotton to computers.
Well, our barony isn't known for going to court anyway.
Right, exactly. That's the time. Unless we can have a virtual drinking contest, that would be.
Back in like March, April,
that
May,
sounds
those were
like fun.
popular.
Yeah. So
You'd get a lot of traction with that one.
Yeah.
I'd be there for that.
We might do that.
I'd be here for that too.
Right.
Cool.
We could
Zoom
not
happy
record-
hours. Zoom
Yeah.
happy hours were popular back in March, April, and May.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, Catherine and Curly, do you have thoughts?
Well, that's one of those ones where I don't have much of an immediate reaction. I'd have to think about it. But, of course, I don't know if Curlew told you, but we are in the process of getting a camera and a mic.
Oh, okay.
Yay.
We've never had a need for it until now.
Yes.
So we're in that process. For myself, I miss people, and I'd like, especially Curlew and I. Curlew's working from home. We're not tied into any of the household.
Right.
We miss people. I would like to, like to interact with people somehow, some way, but, I have no idea what other people in the barony would or would not be interested in.
Right. Okay.
So, it's one of those things of, I detect for myself, us not being tied into a household, even people we have been quote unquote like friends with on Facebook,
Mhm.
kind of losing that connection because we have not seen them, not
Sure.
talked to them, not had any dealings with them for months, and I hate seeing that connection being lost.
Right. That makes sense.
But but what to do about that is kind of beyond me,
Okay.
beyond us. If something could be put together that others in the barony were interested in, I think we would be interested.
Right. Okay. Yeah. And I have a thought, but I want to go to Jenna first and get Jenna's thoughts as well.
I agree with everything that everyone has said. I think that it's really hard not being around the people that we care about. And I haven't really been in this barony for very long, but it's really people focused, like you said, and being around people is really what makes this barony. But I have noticed, I really enjoy the ANS group compendiums, I think they're called. I like those a lot. I think that those are really cool, where you can like pick the classes that you get to be a part of. I think it could be cool to get along with other baronies and do like a group one if we're not having a whole lot of participation. Because maybe that saves us some trouble if we're creating something like that and we only have 3 people from our barony join. If we have 10 people from 2, maybe that's better. I don't know. But I think it's a hard situation, and there's not an easy answer to it. And I commend you guys for trying. And I appreciate it, because I miss the SCA a lot.
Yeah. Well, and so I guess I have 3 things to share. So one, because I was going to lead with this and I forgot, is one of the things that makes this particularly horrible, I guess, for us is The SCA has always been my escape from technology, right? Is when Miana will tell you, when we get to an event, my phone is off. I'm out of technology for the weekend. I will give people a very hard time. Like, I will yell at people if they're like, let me show you this cool YouTube video. I'm like, no, not here. That goes back, you know. So I actually despise combining technology with the SCA.
And here we are.
That's my personal, that is my totally personal bias. But I actually know a lot of people in Ered Sul who feel exactly the same way, right?
I don't disagree with you.
Yeah.
We're the same way. And
Yeah.
I think you hit on something. Is the nature of the SCA is, frankly, medieval escape from the 20th century,
Exactly.
21st
Yeah.
century. So it is a little weird to suddenly go, oh, we're going to do medieval society on computers.
All through, yeah, exactly. Completely medievally.
That is, I think, for many of us, maybe, Silicon Valley people have a different take on that.
No,
I think a lot of people up here have that same attitude.
That's what I was telling Kian. What's really funny, Catherine, is so my entire career before this was in Silicon Valley. I was an IT director. I've worked with computers my entire life. I worked at Logitech, who makes the video camera that most of us are using, right, for many years. And I hate it, right? I hate the technology. I'm the worst baron in the kingdom when it comes to this stuff. So
I understand, because my whole career was in IT at a much lower level, but my whole career was in IT, and that's part of why we are outside of work. We tend to be Luddites.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Yep.
This is what I do 40+ hours a week.
That's exactly right.
Do something different.
Yeah, that's exactly
when I'm
right.
not at work.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm gonna share with you kind of my thoughts based on what everybody just said. And again, I'm really hoping somebody's gonna watch this on a recording, and then we'll follow up with an email and go, yeah, that sounds great or not. Here's my immediate thought is that, again, there are other baronies that are doing a really good job of creating content. And there's some individuals. I mean, Sigrid has been probably the MVP of the kingdom this year. And so that's a shout out to you, Sigrid, if you happen to see this. So rather than trying to reinvent the wheel, I think what we should do is maybe just bring some awareness of that, make sure that some of those things that are happening are reflected on our page so that our populace knows these things are happening, right? Like the baronial bardic, the collegium that Jenna mentioned, things along those lines. At this point, we're really not hearing any motivation to do like the virtual courts that some of the baronies are doing, because again, it's probably going to be the 4 of us, right, or five of us on there, and then we'll put some thought. I said it jokingly, but like the virtual cocktail hour, something that's more our speed for our barony, right? We'll leave it up to the other baronies to do collegiums. We will do drunken kitchen. So we'll put a little thought into something that might be more, more compelling. But I think we're pretty much on the same page, which is that we're somewhat stuck until we're allowed to see each other in person. Kind of what I'm hearing.
I bet when you decided to step up, you weren't expecting your reign to be anything like this.
No. So Skittles was here when I said this. When we so again, our stepping up court got deleted, by the way, which is why nobody got to see it afterwards. But what I commented on there was that the last time we were Baron and Baroness, we were stepping up. It was 2008. We stepped up just as the Great Recession began and ran the entire barony right during that recessionary period, everything that was going on. So when Rob and Kelly asked us to step up this time, the economy was good, the officers were in place, everything was looking good, and we're like, how hard could this be? Right?
This will be a breeze.
This will be a breeze compared to last time. But no.
But but you're not having to run off to events every other weekend.
That's
Yeah,
true.
but-
I would happily do so.
Yeah.
We would both happily do
Yeah.
so. So
Yeah.
all right, so that was some good feedback. And like I said, I think what we're going to do is Kian will post this, and we'll see if anybody watches it on and has any further comments. But that kind of provided some of the information that we wanted to get out there, but also gave us a little bit of an opinion from the populace. So again, you have to be present to vote. So the four of you are deciding everything right now.